Okay, and so we'll begin our presentation. So enjoy. There should be audio at this. Hmm. I'm sharing sound, and of course, probably because I'm sharing sound, now I'm not able to actually play my sound.
So it's very important for students to check their credit accumulation. They're working toward an OSSD, Ontario Secondary School Diploma. So everyone's working toward 30 credits. They only need 20 hours of community service this year as per the government's mandate. Those need to be submitted as soon as possible. And we're a little bit more flexible this year because of COVID circumstances. The literacy test has been waived for anyone who graduates in 2022. Really important for students to be aware that if they've repeated or upgraded a course, it will only count as 1 credit. The second time they take the course, that will go over top of the first mark. Please check online to make sure that anything that you've taken in summer school or e-learning throughout the year has been added to your transcript. Each student will have a grad summary that has been handed out to them that can also be checked on their Aspen account online. When students are checking that, and you can check with your student, they're looking at their credit accumulation, so ensuring that they're heading toward achieving 18 compulsory credits, heading toward achieving 12 electives. Even though it indicates that students need 40 hours, they are only working toward 20. Important to make sure that in the categories for specific courses, that those are being marked off. If a student has any blanks, so a course that they think that they have taken and it's not showing up as completed, that's an important guidance appointment to make as soon as possible. So the first 2 slides are all about how a student can graduate from Regi. The next step is finding out how they can go to their chosen college or university program. How you do that is by ensuring that students have their prerequisites, so the courses required by that particular program, by that particular school, in their schedule. You can find those prerequisites listed on the college and university websites. Anytime you want to circle back and find out more information about applying to college or university, you're welcome to check this presentation on D2L. You can also, if you're looking for further information, you can take campus tours both in person for some schools and virtual for all other schools. Also a great idea to, if you start to know exactly where you would like to go, to email your questions to college or university admissions. Other important valuable resources are the Ontario University's info.ca, so a great resource for anyone who wants to find out any information about any university in Ontario. The application platform is called OUAC. That is the students applying to university in Ontario will use that platform. Their PIN will come out, which we'll talk about a little bit later. OntarioColleges.ca is the college platform for application, but also for research. MyBlueprint.ca, a great resource for any program inside the country. So if you're looking outside of the province, that's a good resource for schools, both colleges and universities. If you have a student who has an IEP, the transitionresourceguide.ca is an important resource, and we also recommend that you touch base with your special education teacher.
So just to keep everyone in the loop, Regi Guidance does in fact have a page in the Virtual Commons, or a D2L page. So your students should see us listed under My Courses. There have been a few glitches this year where some people have noticed that they are not in there. So we just ask that students notify us as soon as possible, and we will add them to the class list once we are aware. This particular page will include information about college and university visits, which will also be mirrored on the Regi website, so the calendar for the school, but we'll include links for the virtual meetings in D2L. And scholarship opportunities will be posted here. Volunteer opportunities, when we become aware of some, will be listed. So there is a wealth of information at your students' fingertips. They just need to actually have the page in their courses. And now we'll start with the college application itself. As Ms. Gaudette noted, we will head to ontariocolleges.ca, or OCAS, to apply now. There will be an icon that reads as such. It is a $95 fee for 5 choices, up to 3 programs at any one school. But a student could, in fact, choose 5 different schools. Choosing one, or having one option, is still going to cost $95. So we're encouraging students to fill in the choices there. In case your student did not get the most recent announcement, the application for Ontario Colleges is in fact open now. So they can head in, create their profile, and make their choices and submit. In order to meet the deadline for equal consideration, which means that you will have a chance with all programs that the schools offer, including competitive programming. That must happen. The application must happen before February 1st, and we encourage students to do not wait until January 30th, please. You want to consider that technology could in fact fail you, so doing so early is a good idea, especially if it does end up being a program that fills quickly and a student ends up on the wait list. Sometimes the timestamp from when you actually applied does become important. So definitely apply early to not be disappointed. The Ontario University application is a little different. You will head to OUAC, or ouac.on.ca, and the undergrad students who are connected or in high school application is the 101. So I would say 101 is for beginners. That is the one that any student who is still attached to our school will complete. It costs $150 for 3 choices. And again, it's really dependent on the school. You can't choose multiple programs within the same faculty at any institution, but you can choose outside of those. So you can have more than one choice at a given school. Every choice after that initial 3, or the initial 3, will be $50. So and unlike the college application, it is not limited. So if you have the $50 to include another choice and wish to do so, that is open to students. The application is available late October, early November. We say that because even though the application is live at this point for next school year, a PIN is needed to activate a particular application. So Right now we're in the process of uploading demographic information to OCAS and OUAC on behalf of all students in grade 12. Once that is done and has been done in a solid fashion, then we can generate the pins for our grade 12s who wish to apply to university. Once we have access to pin generation, students will know. It's not something that we will hold off on getting into their hands. So I think in the next couple of weeks, we have a very good chance of having those to your students. The pin is necessary just to activate the actual application, and at that point, the pin won't be used again. So it's important for students to know that the application deadline for OUAC is a little bit earlier. It is January 13th. And
so go play with your friends or don't.
We strongly encourage students to have their applications completed before Christmas break or by Christmas break, just to be on the safe side. Students, after they have submitted their applications, both for OCAS and OUEC, can change their choices for schools. In some cases, administrative fees will occur for making such changes. So just be prepared that there can be fees associated with swapping choices in and out. College application, typically, as long as you maintain 5 choices, you shouldn't have additional fees. At least that has been past practice. So some information that you may not be aware of, that all universities require a minimum of 6 grade 12 university level courses. Those could be university or mixed level courses. Schools will stipulate if they have a maximum of grade 12 mixed level courses that they deem acceptable. So the course codes that schools will look at will include a 4 and a U, or a 4 and an M. And so if students don't have a total of 6, then they definitely need to book an appointment to talk to their guidance counselor if applying to university is in the cards for them. Both colleges and universities have very competitive programs, and typically the colleges will list what those programs are. I've indicated in our presentations to the students that the universities may not say this is competitive, but when you look at the overview and it suggests they have 80 spots in any given year, and the average last year to be accepted was 88 plus, I would consider that competitive and highly competitive without them listing it as such. And another thing to consider is that you are not receiving mark differentials when you're applying to college if you've come from university programming pathways. So students who could end up being in competition for competitive programming. So there are a few spots in a particular college program, for example. And if I had achieved a particular level in my university level courses, it's possible that if someone who has gone through college level programming applies to the same program and has higher marks than myself, they will consider us equally, and I may in fact not get an offer, whereas my classmate may, in fact. You can accept an offer, then change your mind. So sometimes students will hold off. They'll have offers sitting and waiting, and as long as they keep track of when those offers will expire, they can wait and make a decision. You can accept an offer, and as long as you don't decline, the other offer should not disappear. And so sometimes students worry that if they haven't received an offer from their #1 school, for example, and they accept what might in fact be their #2 choice, that school, the first choice school, will find out they actually don't know what the other schools are receiving from your students. So that's really important to know. They don't have to feel under the gun to make a choice now, but they they don't have to fear repercussions if the other schools find out, because that information is not available to them. Colleges and universities do rescind offers. So there's always going, you may get an offer, you may accept that, and start proceeding down the path of becoming a student of that school, but then don't meet the actual conditions of your offer. There is going to be fine print. They're going to stipulate that you might have to maintain a particular average in maybe your prerequisites. Graduating is always going to be one of the conditions. So if something falls through with someone's graduation requirements, that will automatically be a problem for many reasons. Something to consider is that financial responsibilities can begin in the spring, prior to the fall of the school year that your child will attend. So deposits for holding your actual spot, so sort of a confirmation that yes, I am in fact wanting that spot, and then also to deposits for residents come up in the spring as well. And these deposits, if missed, these deadlines, if missed, it's really an impossibility to go back in time and appeal to the schools, especially where residence is concerned. So it could actually mean not having a place to live that is at least convenient for your student during the school year. So really encourage them to pay attention to emails coming from the school about deadlines and making sure they're in well in advance. They are pricey. They're non-refundable, typically at least a percentage of them. So you definitely want to be certain that when you're putting that money down, you know for sure that's where you're heading. Access to OSAP. So if you do have your student go through the application process for OSAP in the spring, it's right now they're servicing the students who are in school, college, university right now. So they'll turn their attention to next year's classes in the spring. And if they do, if they are going to be granted either scholarship or bursaries, that money typically is not available until closer to the school year beginning. So and also sometimes the funds are a little bit particular as to how they can be used. So it's something to be aware of, knowing all sort of the rules around that money.
So how will students receive information from their schools? Students need to check their email that they provide on the application, and any confirmation or important information will then be sent to that email. So that includes deadlines for required documentation. We sometimes have schools reach out after an application has been submitted asking for additional items. Acceptances will be sent through email and payments will be sent through email. Highly, highly recommend that students read all emails from their schools from the start to finish, because there have been moments where really important information is at the bottom of an email, including step-by-step instructions on how to actually accept an offer. We just want to make sure that those important moments are able to go forward, and that there isn't a mishap that occurs just from someone not reading an email in its entirety. If students have any questions regarding their application, emailing or calling admissions and the registrar of their particular school is strongly recommended. So often they won't even speak to us as a guidance counselor. They want to speak to the student themselves, and students might want to add a parent or guardian as a user on their application, and that could enable you to be able to speak to admissions or a registrar if you're included in the application. And if you know that your student needs a little bit of support in terms of answering email and making sure that everything's done in a timely fashion, that is a safeguard. Where do I find information on scholarships, bursaries, or loans? So all of the colleges and university websites will have that information. If you go to their homepage and you search basically scholarship, bursary, loan, major awards, that'll take you right to that page. Ontario University's info.ca and ontariocolleges.ca both also are a good source of information for ways to finance your school. Scholarshipscanada.com is also a good source. Scholartree.ca, Iconic, Yconic.com, also good sources. The OSAP website, as Ms. Clancy Cox mentioned, opens late winter, early spring as they turn to looking at the incoming students. It's a fairly straightforward website. We sometimes are able to offer support for that. We've had OSAP individuals come into the school, may be able to do that next spring. Scholarship and bursaries and awards are also posted on the R&D guidance page in our virtual commons. Some of those, the big ones, require a school nomination. So it's important that you find out that information and go through the proper steps to secure that nomination if that's the case. The scholarship report is a monthly report that gets posted on My Blueprint. So that is also a good source of information. In general, I want students to know that that scholarships can be a good source of information and support financially, but need to balance how much effort they take with how well we're doing in school as well.
One significant award that comes from Queen's University and I think it's only in its maybe first year where actual students have been recipients of this, is called the Promise Scholar. And so eligibility includes the following criteria: that a student must have received admission to Queen's first year undergraduate degree program, be a first generation student, meaning that parents or guardians have not obtained a college or university degree or diploma. Family income is $50,000 or less. You must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. You have to have graduated or will be graduating from an Ontario secondary school in Kingston, County of Frontenac, County of Lennox and Addington, or County of Leeds and Grenville. And this is just for the next few years, that it will only be limited to our area, and then beyond that may in fact be extended to other parts of Ontario. In order to apply, a student must apply through admissions to Queen's and do so according to the deadlines that are noted there. And I encourage you to head to the website to learn more about the Promise Scholar. Why it is so significant is because students who receive the funding or become a Promise Scholar, if you will, not only receive financial funding, which is very significant, what is afforded these young people. It includes a place to live. It also extends to mentorship and advising, and includes summer employment as well for the entire time that they are pursuing their undergrad at Queen's. So definitely an enormous opportunity. When the applications come in, it is ultimately determined by lottery who the recipients will be, but we encourage students who meet the criteria to certainly put an application in.
What should students be doing now? So the first step is research. We can't really go forward with any of this process unless students actually know where they want to apply to and for what programs. So research, and we've mentioned some really great sites. So if you just need to circle back and take a look at those, that is definitely the first step. Need to also get organized. So we've given students their grad summary. They can also access that throughout the year in Aspen. It is a very good idea to ask for reference letters up front because they can be time consuming. We definitely recommend that students give teachers or people in the community, minimum 1 week and preferably probably 2 weeks before they ask for a reference letter. If they have, awards, important things that they've done, maybe add those to their CV, make sure their volunteer work has been completed. There are 2 important university and college events that are coming up that you could attend virtually that could also help you with your research and solidify choices. So the Virtual Ontario Universities Fair, which is often called the OOF, is Tuesday, October 22nd from 5 to 7. And the colleges are doing something called College Mondays, and they started last week on October the 4th, and they are from 4 to 5. For those, registration is required.
Before we begin with our question and answer period, I have one additional piece of information that we did not mention to this point, and that is for out-of-province applications. Students who wish to apply out of province will apply directly to those schools' websites, and pay the fees directly to the sites as well. So the research would be through those sites as well as the application. Many of those out of province schools will in fact ask your student for their OUAC reference number if they do apply to Ontario. So I'm encouraged, I know Ms. Cadet probably did the same, that if a student has the opportunity, if they're going to apply to Ontario, you may as well apply to that first, because then when you do your out of province applications, you have the reference number to insert when asked. Mrs. Lackey is the new Secretary of Student Services, and once students apply out of province, they are to come in and give her the admissions information for those respective schools, so that at the appropriate times she can upload their transcripts throughout the school year to meet the deadlines for the school's admission process. And that is the formal part of our presentation, and now we will move to our questions. Okay. We're back to live. Oh, and there's Ms. Gadet. Nice to see you, Ms. Gadet.
Hello.
So I think what we'll do, I understand there have been some questions popping in the chat. Of course, every time I touch the screen, even to let someone from the waiting room, I disrupted the presentation. So I'm pretty sure that there have been some questions already answered. Ms. Gadet, is there anything that came up in the chat so far that might be worth starting the conversation tonight with?
Yeah, there have been some good questions in the chat. So one question was, when will schools be looking at marks? And so I just responded by saying that happens throughout the year. And when they stop looking and make offers is completely up to a particular school and a particular program. And the more competitive the program is, the longer those schools will want to take a look at the grade 12s and what they can do in grade 12. And so therefore offers may come as late as mid-May.
And so right now, demographic information is being gathered and prepared to send to OUAC and OCAS on behalf of all grade 12s, so that if and when students choose to apply, that information will be sitting in wait for them. So that's, once that is officially done, that's when the pins for OUAC can be generated by our department. Was there anything else that came up in the chat, or should we just...
The second question was, once a student accepts an offer, does that mean no other schools will send further offers, which is in the presentation, but I just reiterated that we don't recommend students declining offers, and students will continue to receive offers from schools up until the point that or their offers should stay live. Don't decline them. They only expire when their deadline passes. And accepting another offer does not negate that you will receive further offers.
Okay. And then I think there was a question about if someone is a returner, do they still use it? And actually I had an email about that from another young lady tonight. So if you are a returning student, so a grade 13 in the past, you would in fact use a new PIN that we will generate for you this year. However, if you did create an OUAC profile or OCAS account pins for OUAC. So if you created an OUAC profile last year, you must use the OUAC profile that you created, or the OUAC account. So what that means is, and for many people, because we have a tendency to forget our passwords, if you can at least get in and attempt to remedy that. So saying that you forgot your password and get that solved before the pins are in your hands, that's a good idea. So new PIN, same OUAC account. If you didn't create an account last year, then everything is a fresh start for even a returner. And everyone does the 101 application. So if you're connected to our school, still a student, you are doing the 101. Okay, so there was a hand up early on, and I'm not sure if that question was, if that person had an opportunity to ask the question. So I'm going to go to iPhone and have that person, I'm asking them if they can unmute. I'm not sure if they know their hands up or if they do have a question.
Hi, Ms. Lindsay. I don't know how I put the hand up, but I don't have any questions. Thank you.
No question. It was that thorough. Okay, I'll have it that I'll lower your hand. It
Thank you.
happens. I know that if I raised my hand, I would be in big trouble too. So thank you for being here.
There is a question about students that are in co-op or apprenticeship programs and not physically in the school. So usually those students do pop back for certain days in the month or throughout the quadmester. They're always welcome to make guidance appointments on those days if they want some assistance with their application, or they could ask for time away from their co-op placement to pop in, or they are welcome to email since they're not in the building.
And I know, and so just to piggyback on that, we actually took graduation summaries that basically was generated from Aspen, but to help students in case they weren't able to, if they didn't have a really strong handle on what was in their transcript, we wanted to share that with them today. So we went to all the homerooms. Students on co-op, we have those if they're in full day co-op. So if they do have an afternoon class, we will be giving those to their afternoon classroom teachers for tomorrow. And then students who have co-op all day, we're going to email them a copy of their graduation summary just to again do it in a more efficient way, and because we know they're not always in the building. But I think the next time they do have an in-class day, we would definitely try to touch base with them. So
the next question is, how do you register for the university fair?
oh, that I would, if I could direct your attention to the OU info site, so Ontario University's info, that is where you can go in and actually almost create a, I mean, there's a menu, so you kind of pick and choose who you may in fact want to see virtually, and then that would be your registration. So similar idea to even the College Mondays that are happening. You go in and you can choose the panels of schools that you wish to chat with.
Quick question, someone asked, do we need references? And so you definitely would need references for some scholarship applications. You may need to provide a reference for some schools, but there's no hard and fast rule across the board. There'll definitely be programs and universities where they will not require any references. So it's up to you whether or not you prepare in advance and ask for some letters now, maybe when people are less busy. But it could be quite possible that you apply and don't need any references.
And another time that a reference, like for the personal statement of experience,
Mm-hmm.
if some schools ask for those essays or the CV, so all the statements of experience that a school may require, often they will ask for a referee. It's usually a guidance counselor, and so it's really just where we're listed to verify if they had any concerns about the truth behind all of the statements contained.
And someone had a question about possibly needing to provide supplementary documentation. And that can mean many different things depending on the school. So for example, if a student's applying to health science at McMaster, there is for sure a part of their application that comes after they apply. It depends and it changes every year, but usually it is some form of question that the students need to answer. And that question and their answer is considered in the application process. If they're applying for anything creative, they could very well be asked for a portfolio. Again, that's usually due after they apply. So those deadlines tend to be February, March for anything that's supplemental.
I think too, if it's more about an individual, so if anybody has language requirements that they need to demonstrate proof of, I know that can come up for different schools. And what we say to students, if it applies to you, you will know. And then those are the pieces of information that may be required. If it's immigration status, if you've done the TOEFL, and so again, those are questions to bring to guidance if there is any confusion. And I guess I should also open up, we are asking you to put your questions in the chat, but if you'd also like to raise your hand, it is in your option, I think under,
We have another one
okay.
asking, is an IB student I think they mean, will an IB student be considered later due to the exam being in May, or will they
No.
look at their Ontario grades?
Yeah, so actually they will look at Ontario grades, and they will also receive what are called predicted grades. Every IB teacher will make a prediction based on the internal assessments that have been done to this point, and then basically, well, it's a prediction in anticipation of how the student may in fact fare on the external assessments as well. So on the exams in May. So no, there will be a predicted grade for every IB course that will be sent in addition to the Ontario. So Ontario goes, and so what I mentioned to grade 12s today. So I was in a class of IB students, that if they are when they choose to where they are applying, that they will let Mr. David know about the schools as well, and he will provide a supplementary piece of information that contains the predicted grades at the appropriate time. So no, they will not be considered. They will not be considered after the fact.
And then someone just wanted an elaboration on College Mondays.
College Mondays. So this is taking the place of the college information program that used to be a tour that groups of schools, the recruiters would collaborate and go around the province essentially, and you could, a lot of times Frontenac secondary schools seem to host it in Kingston, so you could go to Frontenac and you could talk to the reps from various schools. So instead of that, because of COVID and in anticipation of not being able to get in schools easily, the college information program turned into College Mondays. So if you go to the Ontario Colleges website, ontariocolleges.ca, you can register for College Mondays, and it basically sign up to see certain schools at different times. And I think it's kind of interesting because you might actually get to see some schools that you hadn't considered, or maybe in some cases didn't even know about. So hopefully that was enough elaboration. I haven't participated, so I'm not exactly certain, but I do know what the college information program was like.
Good question about IEP. So if a student has an IEP, it's important to know that unlike their grades, it isn't an automated process by which the IEP goes to the post-secondary institution. For privacy reasons, it's up to the family themselves to actually move and request that a student have a similar document portfolio be created at the post-secondary institution. They're quite willing to do that. What we do recommend is that you take a look. It's called Transition Resource Guide. I think it's .ca is the online version of that. It has pretty much every bit of information you could ever want for a student who has an IEP who's heading to post-secondary. We also recommend that you have a meeting with your CERT, your special education teacher, at some point, just to touch base about accommodations that might be helpful at post-secondary. You can always request copies of documents that we might have on file that maybe you don't have anymore. But it is important to know that it's not an automatic process, and it does require some work on the family's part. I recommend that you start that process the spring before you head to school, once you start to know where you're going to go, just so that accommodations and all of that important scaffolding is all set up before school starts. It's a little bit of a challenge when someone heads to post-secondary and then begins the year and doesn't have those accommodations in place. So if you start to know, what my student's heading to St. Lawrence, St. Lawrence is quite accommodating about receiving students in the spring to start to set up that information.
And I just wanted to add to that, I think people should really reach out to the schools. So, and as Ms. Gadet mentioned, so the minute you know where you think you're heading, I would familiarize myself with the departments that are going to be my supports when I'm in the school. So definitely the ones that support our exceptionalities. for sure. They want to talk to you. So that's not, no one should ever be intimidated or think that, oh, I can't reach out. It's a very good idea to get into that habit now and to encourage your young person in your life to do so.
Okay, there is a question about a student choosing to do their apprenticeship hours versus applying to college for the coming school year. Are they eligible to apply through the school at a later date? And so the answer to that is no. So the moment they leave us, they would apply in a different way. But if they're actually in the apprenticeship program, then that process and that program will help them apply and go to college when they need to.
Yeah, because that definitely is a confusing pathway. Even I still find I have to reach out to our board representative for the apprenticeship piece, just because different trades have different routes. Some you will go directly to college, but in most cases you're going to hopefully be signed to with a tradesperson to be his or her apprentice to accumulate enough hours where you will be invited to go to school from the College of Trades. So it is a different pathway if you do have a young person in your life who is very serious about that, and we would probably be aware, but if we're not, please encourage them to come see us.
I think that is all the questions that are in the chat right now.
Okay, and if anybody else, again, wants, you can keep adding to the chat. If you want to just raise your hand and unmute and ask your question, that's faster in some cases, so it's whatever people are comfortable with.
Someone did ask earlier that the slide presentation will be posted multiple places for you to look at later.
Yes, I think there's another question that just popped in.
Any sense that universities might take into account the extra difficulty encountered by students last year doing online optimesters? I mean, we haven't heard that directly from them. Some of the anecdotal pieces that I've heard from students who've headed to university this year have been encouraging, that their professors are doing their best to meet them where they are and to circle back if need be, but that would definitely be information more so on the university or the college end, and not something that we necessarily could speak to.
And I know that there were quite a few programs coming from different schools in the summer. So we were hearing about it at the end of the school year in anticipation of fall, this fall, for the students starting for fall 2021, that they were going to have some bridging programs over the summer so that students were able to connect with their respective schools. Now, that isn't every school in Ontario to which our students were heading. That being said, they're thinking about it. There's no question. That is a good question. We do have some opportunities to, I think there's a university dialogues coming up to maybe ask some of those questions. So if we do find out more, we will certainly post that. We told all the grade 12s that we visited today, indicated that we will be generating and maintaining a frequently asked questions page, or a did you know page in our D2L. So we will perhaps also try to link that to the website so that parents can access it as well. Anything else? Some of the best information that was generated came from the questions your young people asked us following our presentation. So there are no stupid questions.
And if something comes up later, we're happy to receive email or get a call if something pops into your head.
My hand up.
Yes, someone is unmuted. Can you ask your question?
Oh, hi, sorry.
That's okay. Oh, Catherine, hi.
Hi. Has everybody else got their PIN numbers, or
no one has?
Okay.
So yeah. So and what we said there. So what has to happen? And we're processing information right now in order to do this initial demographics upload for both OCAS and OUAC. Not until that upload is successfully completed can we generate the pins. But once it happens, we will generate the pins. Like, we will not sit on that. I guarantee you, and even before we have a chance to announce it, the students that will be like wildfire. They will be in, it's like, I don't know how they find out, but they know, and they're in the office immediately. So we will make sure the pins are in their hands. They are not going to be behind queue with someone else. We've told them, if you hear your friend from Holy Cross already has her pin, don't worry, you will not lose out because you get it even a week later. Like, so if you can, we're just encouraging patience, but we do not have them yet. No, you cannot go onto the website and generate, like, some of the wording on the OUAC website is confusing. You cannot generate the PIN. So it is something that does come from student services.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Oh, good. No, you're welcome. Question from Lori. Lori, do you mind unmuting?
Yeah, thank you. Question, if the student applied for the top 3 for university and then paid the 150, but decided a couple weeks later that they wanted to apply for a couple of different options, can they still do that as a one-off, or do you have to apply for all of them all at the same time?
No, so if we're talking about the university application, so there's because technically if you get 5 choices for the college app, so I'm just going to speak to that right now, and then I'll talk about the university. So if somebody's cool enough wants to submit their application and they initially only have 3 programs to which, or 3 choices they want to submit, they can do that. And then because there are still 2 blank spots, later on they can add 2. The same would be said for the OUAC application. If initially they have the 3 they're interested in, so they've applied to the 3 choices, whether that's 3 different schools or 2 programs from one school and then a program from another school, and then they want to add 1 or 2 more, they can do that. They can change their application too. So let's say they maintain 3, but there was a program at Brock that they found out about afterwards, so they want to change their 1 Brock choice. They can do that. Our past experience has been, if you are making a change, if you're adding, it's going to cost. If you are maintaining your number and it's like a Brock program for a Brock program, typically speaking, that has not added fees. But if you change Brock for Trent, then that will incur an administrative fee. And we said to students today, like, we're thinking it might be about $50, but we can't say for certain until they start going through the applications this year. I hope that answered it.
Sorry, there's a question about when the DELF is happening, and will that be in time for students who would like to apply to McGill?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to send Madame Beliveau-Scott a text right now to ask that question. So if there are other questions, we'll wait and see if she gets back to me.
And then it looks like there might be some disparity or error maybe with the date of the university fair, because I think it's listed as Tuesday, the 22nd of October, but the 22nd is on a Friday.
So we'll look that up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that that's definitely one of my exceptionalities, is that I have trouble getting dates right. So hopefully that was a misprint that I copied and didn't create the error myself.
It looks like it's on the 26th.
Okay, thank you.
So
there we go.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 26th of October. Thank you. Very good question. And we'll change that. Any other questions?
Oh, there's an out of province question.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just getting into it. Are the fees different for an out of province application? Are there different fees?
Yeah, different. So what I and I'm sure Ms. Gaudette's had the same conversations today. Out of province, you're going to apply directly to those sites. So if I'm applying to McGill, I'm applying directly to the McGill site, and I am paying that site the fee. So there will be a fee for every one of those applications.
There's sometimes some schools, in particular schools that very commonly receive students from Ontario, they may hold special events where if you register for this event, they'll waive their fee. So for example, Bishops is having an event, I believe this Saturday, and if you register for that event, then they waive their administrative fee to apply to Bishops.
Any other questions? Okay. So obviously this was a great start to question asking and information sharing. If along this journey with your students this year you have questions or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out. They should know who their guidance counselor is by now, but you can always call student services and Mrs. Lackey can direct you to the appropriate individual. So thank you so much on behalf of student services, on behalf of Regi. We appreciate the time that you're giving up tonight to be here. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Have a great night.
Miss Clancy Cox, you said there's no such thing as a bad question. I've got
Never, never.
You said that the exams for IB won't be in time, so they're going to use predictive grades. What's the margin for error on those and the repercussions if there is some kind of discrepancy?
That's a really good question. So I would say that the margin of error at Regi has, so we're moderated and they do keep track of that. We tend to, I'm going to tell you, when I taught IB English for a long time, which feels like a long time ago now, we always erred on we always over predicted. So we always want to benefit the student, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, if anything, we might err on the high side versus, being punitive. So, that is a very good question. I would say, typically speaking, where we have not been seen as a school that has incredible discrepancies. I actually have noticed that sometimes the IB results tend to be less generous than we have been.
Okay.
Right or wrong.
Yeah, no, once the actual transcripts go in and the prediction is off, be it high or low, is there any blowback or anything? Like, I don't know if I'm wording that properly.
I know what you're saying. So if there was a situation, I think we would, again, where it was brought to our attention that maybe something was of concern in that regard, I think we would certainly take that into consideration and have a meeting about that particular situation.
Okay.
Involving Mr. David and Mr. Mellon, like that would definitely gain our attention very quickly. We would take any concerns very seriously in that regard.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Thank you so much again, everyone. Additional information we'll continue to post, so enjoy your evening. Thank you, Bob. Hello, Warriors, parents.